the Eagle Badger podcast.
On to the next story. We're going to talk about the NBC, the National Broadcasting Commission's new code. And I'll read a story from Premium Times. Big headlines: Broadcasting Code. NBC board disagrees with Lai Mohammed, says the minister acted alone. This is a story from Premium Times. And it says, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, erroneously amended the 6th edition of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. This is the chairman of the NBC, Ikra Bilbis, speaking here. The minister, while unveiling the review code on August 4th in Lagos, had said that the amendments were necessitated by a presidential directive in the wake of the 2019 general elections. He said the aim was to reposition the NBC for optimum performance. The code, since its amendment, has stirred up controversy in the industry, many Nigerians kicking against its provisions. Many Nigerians view the move as a backdoor attempt to clamp down on free speech, dissent, and the media. In the amended code, the ministry increased the fine for hate speech from 500,000 naira to 5 million. It's actually to 5 million and above. So 5 million is the minimum threshold. It also announced tougher regulation of web broadcast, among others. Earlier on Thursday, the NBC fined the radio station Nigeria Info 99.3 FM 5 million naira for, in quotes, providing its platform to be used to promote unverifiable and inciting views that can incite crime and public disorder. This decision came after a former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Obadiah Mailafia, claimed on radio that a governor of a northern state was the leader of the extremist group Boko Haram. Ariyo, what are your thoughts on this really interesting story?
Thank you very much, Joseph. I think I used a specific word when we talked about Kama. I said fifth columnist. Now, let me now justify it now. So we have some persons who are actually at the center of this. So they divided some of these provisions, legislations that have been opposed, by Nigerians.
Just to bring our listeners up to speed, there were two very controversial bills that were fiercely resisted in the recent past. The first one was the NGO regulation bill, and yes, the second one was the hate speech bill. So please continue.
Yes. So the hate speech bill and also the fake news bill. So what they've succeeded in doing is to smuggle some into Kama and also translate some as code under the NBC. And that was why Lai Mohammed, minister, said about hate speech, under the NBC code. I am not averse to regulation. We've made that. That's the best thing to do in every sane climb, to regulate. But you can't be a judge in your own case. That's the concern of many Nigerians. And I think what Lai Mohammed has done is an overreach. The minister is first a Nigerian citizen, an appointee of government. When you want to make this kind of codes, provisions into the NBC code, which is the 6th NBC code, really, the best approach would have been for all the industry players to contribute and to participate. And I can tell you that the current provisions that Lai Mohammed probably deliberately and personally inserted is actually different from what was actually, I think, was passed in Kano by, the meeting of the NBC that was held in 2019, which as a result of the 2019 elections, he said that there have been concern in FEC and that therefore they have to do something. FEC is not a representation of Nigerians. FEC are appointees of the president, they are ministers. Even the National Assembly cannot, despite the fact that they are the representative of the people, cannot lay claim in totality to be doing everything that actually, satisfy the interests of Nigerians. So, number one thing is that, again, these codes also will be challenged. I expect that Nigerian Info will have gone to court by now to challenge these obnoxious fines levied against them by the minister. I also want to commend the NBC board for standing firm and for insisting that what the minister did was very wrong. And that is the best way to go. So we must continue to challenge, some of these offensive provisions that tend to undermine our democracy. Lai Mohammed himself, in opposition, had every reason going well for him. With the courts that are in place today by Lai Mohammed, there is no way Lai Mohammed himself will have survived as an opposition figure based on what is currently recommending. So we must not allow them to gag free speech. We must not allow them to undermine, the democratic space, to shrink the democratic space. So I side with the NBC board, and I also believe that there should also be a legal tussle over this.
Looking at the bill itself, setting aside fifth columnists and conspiracy theories, it's a very problematic piece of legislation. For instance, it talks about regulating web presence, and it says 2.0.3, all persons who wish to operate web/online broadcasting services, such as us, in Nigerian territories shall be registered with the Commission. Web and online platform owners, so such as Zoom or YouTube or whichever platform we decide to broadcast, shall bear liability for every content on their platforms. Content on web platforms shall conform to the provisions of the Code on Programming Standard, especially as it relates to hate speech and fake news. So I wonder how you are going to, for instance, start regulating things broadcast or published on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. Are you going to be coming, because the NBC won't sanction the people who speak. So in this Obadiah Melafia's case, for instance, Obadiah wasn't sanctioned. It was Nigeria Info that was penalized. So how are you going to regulate, if Obadiah Melafia had gone on YouTube and made that statement from his home in Abuja, how are you going to penalize YouTube? The only way you penalize them, for instance, is to issue a denial of service instruction and to block the website from Nigeria. So is that what the NBC is looking to do? The other thing that, again, just looking at the law itself, the other thing the NBC has tried to do in this law is to come over, and it's very obvious, is to come over the broadcasting of premium sports. The English Premier League, football, pay-per-view, television, and on-demand sports like boxing, etc. And has said, there was a clause that made me laugh, and has said that exclusivity is prohibited. I want to get the exact clause, but it basically says exclusive content is prohibited. And I don't understand if the NBC understands how pay-per-view channels work, not just sports. So for instance, Netflix has original programs. Netflix makes and shows only on Netflix. So, and that is Netflix, attraction. That's Netflix's selling point. They'll say subscribe to our channel because you can get content only from us. We will invest content, our own resources in developing our content that hopefully will attract you. So it seems to on one side to be attacking hate speech, and then on the other side, it seems to have no understanding at all of the way modern broadcasting works.
So also, what they are trying to do is to have total control of everything in terms of the broadcast media and every aspect of the media. They want to control what you say. They want to control what is heard. They want to control every aspect of the media. That is why they are rushing into some of those things without actually thinking it's true. So in essence, when you look at what they are asking the broadcast industry to do, is number one, it is either you don't do personality program, guest program, inviting guests live to come and talk on burning and salient issues. Number one. Number two, if you're going to invite guests, if you're going to talk about burning and salient issue, then make everything a recorded program such that you are able to edit out an aspect that you think will violate what Lai Mohammed and his people, have put into the code. So, but if in addition to that, if you are not recording, what that means is that, look, whoever is going to invite to your live program and you are not invited, you should be a pro-government person that you are reasonably satisfied that this is not going to criticize our government. So these are the three issues and probably more that you can deduce, from what they are asking the broadcast organizations, the broadcast media to do. And this cannot stand the test of time. It's as good as killing the business. In all of this, I don't think Lai Mohammed is looking at the opportunity of growing this critical sector in Nigeria that provides jobs for thousands and thousands of people. What they want to do is to gradually kill everything, because it is only a robust broadcast media that can actually generate jobs that will interest the people. A broadcast media organization that operates based on government patronage, it doesn't really excite the people. Lai Mohammed in opposition enjoyed this benefit, and we shouldn't allow that to happen. So I agree with everybody who is actually attacking this code, and the fact that some of this code also violate sections of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I think this is section 44 thereabouts, and also section 55. These codes also violate some of the provisions, that have been put in place. Violate section 39 of the 1999 Constitution too. So when you look at it, you realize that these are not codes they were, thought through. And in addition to that, codes are like the NBC code are subsidiary of subsidiary legislation, in the sense that the NBC Act itself is a subsidiary legislation, in the sense that the Constitution is the ground norm, is the supreme document. So every other document derives strength and power from the Constitution. So the NBC Code derived its own existence from the NBC Act. And I don't think that when you look at the NBC Act, I don't think the Act can even sustain what some of these provisions that have been, obnoxious provisions that have been inserted into the codes, and these codes violate the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I know it cannot stand, and it's important that all critical players come together, to ensure that there is an urgent review. We want the industry to grow. We know there are concerns about hate speeches. There are concerns about what people say sometimes. But look, the only way to counter fake news is to put the alternative fact out. The only way to counter hate speech is for people, to say, what is actually the truth. So it is not by attacking everything with draconian legislation. We have enough laws in Nigeria to address some of the concerns that Lai Mohammed, is doing everything to bring in laws and codes just, with the intention of shutting down, dissent in Nigeria. And all this cannot stand, really. Also.
So yeah, so I'll put on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. It's clause 628. In the broad national interest, exclusivity of sporting rights in Nigeria is prohibited. I just wanted you guys to see it so you don't think we're making stuff up. Going sort of like looking at the drafters of this particular amendment to the code, as impressed as I was by the previous document we just looked at, the KAMA Act 2020, I think I am disappointed by the sloppiness of this. And it goes just all the way back to, questions about whether the DG of the commission of the NBC and or Lai Mohammed have the power to create codes, and they don't. So the Establishment Act of the Commission itself says the power to create and regulate the code is one of the responsibilities of the Commission. And the Commission is made up of the chairman, it's made up of the Director General, and 10 other members. It's not within the purview of the minister to hijack, to instruct. It's not within the purview of the presidential committee, no matter how constructed. The responsibility, the singular body responsible for creating and owning the NBC code is the commission as described by the Establishment Act of the NBC itself. So in the first instance, that is why the board is kicking against what Lai Mohammed has done. It's not his document, it's not his code, it's theirs. I mean, in the second instance, you talked about, the constitution being the ground norm, and then the act, and then the code. This bit of legislation also talks about competition, and the problem with its take on competition within the industry is that we actually have the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Agency, I think, that is responsible for all matters of monopolies and anti-competition, and actually says in their laws that when any other agency of government speaks to regulating competition, the FCCPA takes priority, is above every other agency. So this talk, they have a whole section about anti-competition here. It's irrelevant because the FCCPA is already administering antitrust and anti-competition regulation. If I have any question, and this you'll probably be able to answer this, Ariyo, because of your experience with the civil society. We've just looked at two laws that appear to have managed to sneak in two bills that were resisted by Nigerians, the NGO bill and the hate speech bill. How did that happen to fly under the nose of not just opposition party members in the National Assembly, not just the press, but also civil society actors?
Yeah, also, first you realize that this is a government that its mindset is command and control, and that's exactly what you're saying. Replicating in policies, actions, legislation, including the NBC code that Lai Mohammed has just released, as is generating this controversy. You can't blame the civil society that much, including the media, because we're talking about a ninth National Assembly that is pliable, that is seen as almost 100% pro the executive. So some of these things were done, off radar, and people couldn't really see some of those provisions. You have to give it to this CSOs, the media, and activists who had resisted, this as a separate legislation. But now they've been unbundled and are being inserted into different other, assembly for amendment. So nobody is sleeping over this. And I believe that, and that's part of the reasons why we are here too, in order to continue to sensitize the public for them to be aware that, look, these obnoxious provisions must be challenged. I know that this podcast is very important. It's not just to critique, but also to appraise, and also where necessary to comment if some reasonable things have been done by either the government at the national, subnational, at the local level, including private players who are doing a lot of things in our country. But we will have to place this where it is. It is not good enough that legislations, bills that are rejected by Nigerians are, are unbundled and spread across other legislation. Is a serious disservice to the people, and it's not good enough. In some other climes, it could lead to impeachment. Also,
I was very generous in giving the last bit of legislation a 7. I think it was well deserved, because I don't think this is a piece of legislation. I think it's just a contraption, because I don't think a lot of thought was given to it. It seemed, the amendment seemed, to have been written to just push through a couple of predetermined outcomes that don't appear on the face of it or even beneath the surface to be in the national interest. I would score this a big fat 0. It's not worth our time. I think it should be resisted in courts and by the NBC board. Because what they are trying to do, again, not talking about the exclusivity argument, what they're trying to do has been done elsewhere. But I think they should just find a way to structure it in a way that's acceptable and communicate it in a way that is reasonable and doesn't scare business away. That's what I think they should do. What would you score this bill?
Yeah, maybe I should be more generous than you this time around. Maybe I should score them 1.5. There are 1 or 2 other codes that are probably very important, but the entire thing has been rubbished really by what the minister himself has made as the reason why that code was amended in the first place. Like I said, they should be forward-looking. Codes law should be about helping the industry to grow, corporate governance, standard best practices. That should be the mindset, not to gag, to command, to control, to hammer. That mentality, we just have to do away with it, and I don't think it's the best thing. So I think Lai Mohammed should have a rethink. If he's tired, I think Lai Mohammed should go home and go and take care of his grandchildren. If he's tired. I think the man is tired.
That's noted. Hopefully he listens to this podcast and he might take your suggestion under advisement.